I think my childhood was very oh god, without getting too into it and getting too trauma dump. Yeah, there was conversations being had about gender on Drag Race, and I was kind of like, oh, some of these girls have this like awareness that I would love to tap into, so I did. When you're acting and you're on stage or you're on a set or whatever, it's it's not me. But when I was me in those moments, I was like, I've never felt so vulnerable. It's not every day that a show like What It Feels Like for a Girl comes along. You know, it shouldn't be so groundbreaking to have a show like ours in 2025. But unfortunately it is. The wonderful, incredible Lena Dunham came over to me and was like, Alex, so your monologue, and then she turned around her iPad and the whole thing was crossed out and she'd rewritten it.
Hello and welcome back to the queerest podcast telling the fiercest stories. This is Queer Talker and I'm Ben Cicchetti. This week I sit down with the incredible Alex Thomas Smith. But before we get to that conversation, I've got one favour to ask. Wherever you are watching or listening to this episode, hit that subscribe button. It's one click and it's going to make a massive difference. It's going to allow me to grow this podcast and it's going to allow me to bring you the best and the queerest episodes every single time. So in advance, thank you. Now to my conversation with Alex. We will start with our Queer Panic rapid fire set of questions. You just respond with the first thing that comes to mind.
Oh gosh, okay.
I know, it's a challenge. It's a challenge. What was the first album you ever owned?
Spice by the Spice Girls. It's iconic. And I think it's still one of my like most played albums to this day. Like I love that album, love the girls, love.
Okay, I'm 100% with you there. I listen to it far too much, so I'm totally with you. Speaking of music, what would be your lip sync for your life song of choice?
It would be Alter Ego by Doechii. It was my song of the year last year, like
Yeah.
without a doubt. And I just feel like I know that song inside out. I know every beat of that song. It's so iconic.
I love that. That's an amazing choice. And we have a playlist that I get to now add all these songs to, which I love.
Exactly.
Who was your childhood celebrity crush?
Oh, good question. Probably Justin Bieber, because he was
Okay.
like, I'm a believer through and through,
Yeah.
and he was like a year older than me, I think. So like, oh God, really revealing my age here. So when he was like a teen sensation, I was like a teenager as well, so it was fine.
Yeah.
And yeah, just to preface that,
Just to make sure everyone
and
knows that.
yeah, just so everyone's aware. And he's just, yeah, I was just like, oh my God. I feel like everyone had Bieber fever. Well, I did.
Yeah.
And I still do to
Yeah.
this day.
Yeah. Can't blame you. What is your biggest red flag?
Rudeness to people in hospitality. If you're on a date and they're not polite, the waiters or the servers or the hosts or anybody, I'm just like, oh, this is not good.
Yeah, not here for it. Totally with you there.
Yeah.
And you mentioned dating. What is your most embarrassing dating story that you can share with us?
I don't know, I don't really have, luckily, thank God, I don't really have that many. But I did once fall in love with a boy who lived in America and I flew to New York to see him. And we spent a couple of months together and it was incredible. It was like a Netflix movie. And then I basically came back to London and then I was like, oh, I'll go back and, like we'll just pick up where we left off. But unfortunately, when you try and recreate something that was magical, it's never quite the same. And it didn't end well. And then I was like, I flew all this way to see you. And he was like, well, I didn't ask you to.
That is
So that
brutal.
wasn't, yeah.
That's not the response you wanted.
No, 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 no.
Obviously, you've starred in some iconic queer TV shows, but what is your favorite queer movie or TV show?
Pose. Like Pose is just everything. And also it's more than a TV show. It's like such a history lesson. I feel like
Yeah.
everybody should watch Pose, queer people, cis, straight people, like everybody should watch Pose. It's so well made, so fascinating, interesting, educational. It's wonderful visually, it's just incredible.
Yeah. I completely agree.
Yeah.
Is there a dream role you would love to play?
You know what? Less so as I've got older. I think my dream is to create something new and be the first to do something that's been done before. So yeah, my dream is just a plan, really.
Yeah. I think that's fair. I think that's fair.
Yeah.
What is your what is your favorite queer slang?
Boots. I say boots for everything. Honestly, boots is so like it means so many things. It,
It's
it can be
versatile.
like yeah, it can be like I agree, like boots. It can be you look good, like boots. It can be it's just so many things. Oh, I'm having the worst day, like down boots. Like it's just iconic. It's so versatile. And what's so funny is when my American friends come to the UK and they see Boots the shop, they're
Oh.
always like boots, and I'm like, yes, girl, boots.
That's amazing. Who is your ultimate queer icon?
Oh my God. I mean, I don't know how I would pick one, but it probably, if I had to, be Gaga. Like, Gaga is
Mm,
everything, isn't she? I mean, like, just Gaga. Like, the word
yeah.
Gaga in itself is enough. Gaga.
Yeah. Full stop. End of
Yep,
sentence. I love it.
Gaga.
Um, who is this is a very selfish question from me. Who is one person you would like to hear on this podcast?
Probably, oh, good question. Probably my friend Lars Fellows, who was the first trans man to be on I Kissed a Boy on BBC, I believe. He is a sweetheart. And I think what he's doing and what he's done is really important and groundbreaking and very of the time, only just came out this year. And I see him everywhere. He was at my wedding, and I see him at events and parties and stuff. And he's just fab. He's great.
I love that. That's an amazing choice. We will definitely reach out and try and get them on the
Yeah.
podcast. And final of our Queer Panic questions. What one word would you use to describe your childhood?
Oh, um, revealing.
Okay. Okay. I like that.
Yeah.
Okay. We've warmed up. We've got a glimpse into who you are, but let's
Hmm.
dig a bit deeper because obviously you say revealing. Tell me about yourself as a child. Because I have this theory that to understand someone today, you first need to understand them as a young person. So, what should I know about you as a young person to understand the Alex that's sitting in front of me today?
I think my childhood was very oh God, without getting too into it and getting too trauma dump, I think my childhood was very challenging in lots of different ways. Not in a lot of ways that a lot of queer people face. I never had extreme homophobia or transphobia or queerphobia or anything like that. So in that sense, I was quite fortunate. But I think a lot of the time was spent with my sisters. So it was kind of just me and my sisters against the world, really. And on one hand, it was obviously difficult not having like stable parent support, like emotionally, financially, all that stuff. But then on the other hand, like as I look back at my childhood now, I'm just like, you know, thank God we had each other.
Mm,
And me and my sisters are still as close as anything to this day. And it's kind of like, we didn't have what we didn't have from our parents, we kind of
yeah.
just made up for and still do to this day by loving and supporting each other.
That's amazing. I think there's two super interesting things that happen in all kind of queer people's lives that I'm super interested to dig into. First is kind of their first awareness of queer people, and then their first awareness of their own inner queerness. So let's start with the
Hmm.
first. Do you remember the first LGBTQ plus queer person you became aware of?
It's funny because I would say the first person who I was like, oh, okay, like this is like wild, is Nadia, who won Big Brother. She was like the
Yeah.
first trans woman to win Big Brother. And I remember being very young and watching it on TV. And I mean, it's just can I swear? It's a bloody
Yeah.
effing world away from how, trans people are currently being perceived in the UK. I don't feel like we'd have a trans winner of Big Brother anytime soon today, which is
Mm,
crazy because it's like we've gone back in time. Um, but yeah, just seeing her so like celebrated and just seeing it as a possibility. I don't think it was anything that I'd kind of like considered.
Yeah.
as like a small town kid watching Big Brother on there, like, remember those TVs that used to have a built-in video player? I used to have
Yeah.
one of those in my room, and I was just like watching Big Brother like really late at night. I was just like, I remember wanting her to win and just like cheering for her, but then seeing everybody else cheer for her, I was like, wow, like, what a possibility, right? It was something that you didn't even realize was an option. But then prior
Yeah.
to that would have been Hayley Cropper on Coronation Street,
Okay.
who was like a trans character not played by a trans
Yeah.
actor, which obviously isn't good. But I remember that was, I guess, my first peek into like what being or what people perceive to be trans is.
Mm.
So I was like, oh, this is something. And then obviously Nadia came along and kind of shaped things a little bit better than Coronation Street did.
Yeah, Nadia was iconic, and it was such an incredible moment. I completely agree with you. I'm not sure she gets her flowers for what she must have done for that community to see someone living so authentically and being so loved by the public, right? To win Big Brother, you have to be loved by the public to get those votes. And then the flip side of that is that kind of first experience where, and there's an amazing documentary on Netflix I've talked about before called Disclosure, where they talk about that previously a lot of trans characters were played by men dressed as women or women dressed as men. And it kind of implanted this thought, I think, into a lot of people's subconscious mind that that's what a trans person is. They're pretending to be the other gender, not actually that they are the other gender. What about yourself? What about the other experience? When did you first feel that? We often all feel that first spark or that first kind of realization of our inner queerness. Do you remember when you first felt that in yourself?
I don't know, I feel like it's always been there. I think I've always just been me. I've never been like one thing. I've never felt the need, and I've been very fortunate to, I've never had to like explain to anybody, like, oh, I never had like a coming out, for example. I kind of just called my sister one day when I'd broken up with my boyfriend, and I was like, I've broken up with my boyfriend. And she was just like, oh, and talked me through it like any other situation. So I've never had a moment like that, but I think, yeah, I don't know. I've just always been me. I think there was definitely a shift, a huge shift. Um, and I don't know, probably like maybe like towards 2018, and I was working in the West End, and I was playing lots of like, male presenting roles. And I probably think it was like the influx of Drag Race has had such a shaping on what pop culture is today, in every aspect. You see people on the red carpet now in glam, in hair, and I'm like, you realize you're just dressed like a drag queen, which is so iconic. But I think, yeah, there was conversations being had about gender on Drag Race, and I was kind of like, you know what, this like fluidity that people are talking about, that is how I feel. I've just never thought about it in terms of like a
Mm.
label. So yeah, I guess a moment for me was probably just like watching a season of that and being like, huh, I know I'm not a drag queen, but I know that I'm not a man either, It was very much like a fluid awakening where I was like, oh, some of these girls have this like awareness that I would love to tap into. So I did.
Yeah. I think that really speaks to the importance of, if you think about kind of our last couple of conversations around media and the role they can play, right? Shows like Drag Race, shows like What It Feels Like for a Girl, and all these incredible shows that give people the opportunity, I think, to educate and learn about the experiences, but also potentially see themselves authentically portrayed on shows. And authenticity is something that I'm fascinated by. And everything you do, you kind of shine with this kind of authenticity in everything that you do.
Oh, thank
When do you
you.
think you first felt that inner authenticity? And then when did you feel you could just bring that unapologetically to everything you do?
I kind of felt it. I don't. I don't know. It's been like such a long journey through my 20s. And I've always felt within me that I was like this just like fluid person who just wanted to kind of just be identified as neither or, and just want to just be myself. And society, it's everybody else that needs to know where to put you so that they can know how to treat you. Um, but I guess b- being in the pandemic helped, being in the house for 4 months. I was kind of just like, everything gets stripped away, and you're kind of like, what is left? And what does that mean about me? And also just playing different roles, different characters. I played lots of queer roles on the West End, and when you play a role every night for a year, it's kind of exposing, and it makes you look within, and it makes you, oftentimes you go towards the character, sometimes you bring the character towards yourself, and you kind of like find things about yourself within them. And I guess I just, as I, played queer roles in one show, then another show, and then another show, I was kind of learning so much about myself as I did it. And then I think a huge part of my authenticity, which may be a good thing, maybe a bad thing, is just truly not giving a fuck. And also using that as a tool to kind of be like, this is who I am, take it or leave it. Like every time I walk into a space, I try not to ever, dilute myself or be something I'm not. And I've stopped playing roles that don't associate with who I am as a person. And it's like, it'd be so much easier if I was just like, okay, I'm happy to pretend to be this one thing. I might have more jobs maybe, but I'm just like, I don't want to do that. And I can't do that because it's just so damaging to who I am as a person. So yeah, I'm just so me all the time. And I truly, truly am just like, take it or leave it. Wherever I go, like even if it's like, a life-changing opportunity, I will go in there and I'll give them. I always say to my agent, like, I will give them me. And if they want me, they'll take me. If they don't, they won't. And if they want somebody else, then I'm not who they're looking for in the first place,
I think you said something so interesting that I've never thought about, which is, would it, to take a role that didn't feel authentic to yourself, would it feel almost like, for what a lot of us would feel like, kind of stepping back into the closet because you have to embody that character so much? Is that how it would feel to kind of take on a role that didn't feel authentic to who you are?
Yeah, I guess so. And I think it's a very, very long conversation, probably for another day, that lots of people have different opinions on. It's just acting, which is a problematic phrase for many, many reasons. But the most important reason why that's problematic for me is that, like, it is acting in a sense that I'm not this person. But if I'm not that identity, it's a huge difference of what I would have to the load I would have to carry. And it's like, gender is a group which is similar to race, which is similar to sexuality. And it's like, there's a reason that white people shouldn't play black people. There's a reason why um, trans people shouldn't be forced to play a role that is a gender that they once assigned with. It's damaging, and it's misrepresentative, and it's furthering a narrative that's already out there about gender non-conforming and trans people, which is very harmful. So yeah, I think oftentimes I might get a role come in that might be male presenting to start with. And like I said just previous, I'll go in and I'll say, look, I know how it's written. I was in for something recently, a TV project, that was written as like a gay guy. And they said on the breakdown from day one, look, it's written as one thing, but we are open to adapting it to the actor that we find. And that
I
doesn't
love that.
happen often, but it is nice to know that it's out there and it's a possibility. But I always just, go in as me. And I don't think there's much when I'm going into an audition room and I'm, painted and I'm giving me, I'm like, you're not going to cast me as Callum from Lincoln. Like, you're just not, you know?
Yeah, that makes total sense. And it's amazing to hear that there are these kind of, the way we are moving is to things like you just said with this TV project, where they, had written it a certain way, but they were very open to how it might change depending on the person they chose. Let's bring it to today, because we're about 18 minutes in and I haven't mentioned the fact that you recently got married. So we need to talk about that. Because I love a good wedding. So tell me about the day, what it meant to you, and just kind of your wedding story, I guess, is what I'm looking for.
Oh gosh. Well, it was kind of like it was so for a long time we'd been discussing how we were going to do it. I always wanted to do it just the two of us. I wanted to just go away, go to Vegas, get Elvis to marry us in like a little chapel thing, and that'd be done. Like that'd be it. My other half, he has quite a big family, and he was like, I want my family to be there to see me get married. And I, I wasn't like against it, but I was kind of like, I don't want to have like a big heteronormative kind of, you know, table 12, chicken or fish, that kind of thing. I was
Yeah.
just like, that's not who I am. And he was like, okay, cool, let's find a middle ground. So we basically did a Friday and a Saturday. Friday was very intimate. and it was all the like legal like wedding bits.
Yeah.
And then we got married in Hackney. Super gorgeous. It was like the sun was shining, and it was the only day of the week that had sunshine. So I was like, this is a good sign. And then we went and had like a wedding feast with all of our family and friends. So it was like 20 people. That was it. And then the
Love
next
it.
day we had a big party. So like a big knees up in East London as well. Because that's what I wanted. I was like, okay, if we're gonna do the big bash, I was like, let's do it on another day. And to be honest, I was so exhausted. I was like, I don't know how people do this all in one day. I truly don't.
It's a
But it was
lot.
like the best. Yeah, it really is. It was the best weekend of my life, and I would do it again now, but I wouldn't do it again if it was the first time because I was just so nervous the whole time and overwhelmed and exhausted and obviously like hair, face, shoes, dress. I was just like, I remember getting there on the Saturday and I think we arrived at like 4 and the party was till midnight and it was like 6 and I was like, can we go? I was just so
I'm tired.
Yeah, I was literally like, babe, I didn't sleep the night before our wedding on the Friday because I was nervous. Then on the Friday
Yeah.
night, I was so like overwhelmed and excited and didn't sleep on the Friday night. I was just so tired. Like honestly, getting married, if I can summarize it in one word, it's tiring.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I remember my wedding day, and me and my husband were very similar in that we didn't really want a massive spotlight on us. So
Mm.
we were like, we just want to do like a big party. And we had like a summer party with a barbecue and things like that, just to kind of make it relatively
Yeah.
chill. But there's so much stress. You are the center of attention, but
Hmm.
also weird things popped into your head. I was like, what if I say the wrong name? And my husband's name's
Yeah.
Ben as well. So that would have been crazy for
Oh
me to do.
gosh.
But I think it's like
Yeah.
Friends had got in my head, the TV show got in my head, and I was just like, what
Yeah.
if? But yeah, it looked amazing. You looked stunning. Your partner looked
Oh, thank
stunning. I'm so
you.
happy for you. It really did look
Thank you
like an
so
amazing
much.
experience.
Also, what was surprising was that people were like, because we kind of made a grand entrance on the Saturday and on the Friday, obviously, just like walking down the aisle, no one had seen us. And both things, I was terrified. And everyone was kind of like, well, you're an actor though. And I was like, it's not the same. Like when you're acting and you're on stage or you're on a set or whatever, it's it's not me. But when I was
Yeah.
me in those moments, I was like, I've never felt so vulnerable. It was crazy. But people
Yeah.
expect me, because I'm such a confident person, people expect me to just be confident 24/7, and that's not the case.
Yeah, I could totally appreciate that. Obviously, you mentioned being on stage, being on set. So let's talk about your work a little bit. And I
Mhm.
first became aware of you after going to watch and Juliet in
Oh,
London.
fun.
And you
Mhm.
played the fabulous best friend of Juliet, May. And I just remember leaving and being so drawn to that character, so drawn to you as a performer. Talk to me about that role and how much of yourself you were able to put into it versus the character for you. And then just kind of your general experience of being on and Juliet, which is an amazing show.
Yeah, so it was kind of something that just fell into my life, and Juliet. I was working with the director, Luke Shepherd, wonderful man. I was working with him on another show before, and basically what happened was, and Juliet had opened, it had its cast, it was doing its thing. Then lockdown happened, and then I did a show with Luke, kind of the tail end of lockdown. And then basically Aaron, who played May originally, had decided that they didn't want to come back. They wanted to do other things. So Luke was kind of just like, "Do you want to come into Juliet?" And I was like, "Well, I've never really seen it, and I've never I don't know. I don't know. I just not thought about it. I was kind of like at
Yeah.
that point, obviously, and Juliet was my last West End show, so I was kind of like trying to step away from commercial musical theatre, for many reasons. But I wanted to just focus on screen and stuff like that. So I was like, I'm not really sure. But coming out of COVID, I was like, but I'm broke. So you know what? It wouldn't be the worst idea to do a show in town that I would enjoy. And I loved the show. I absolutely loved the show. I love working with Luke. And in terms of the character, yeah, so obviously a lot of it was already done, but a lot of it was not dissimilar to who I am as a person. So that was really nice to kind of like bring a bit of me, a bit of May. And then with Luke, he was very open to, we had a lot of discussions about my version of May and how I wanted that to be. And it was very um collaborative, which oftentimes when you step into a Western show, it's like what's done is done.
Yeah.
But Luke doesn't really work like that, which was great. So yeah, I just had the best time of my life. I was only supposed to do 6 months, so like the end of the original cast, and then it got to the end of those 6 months, and I was having so much fun. I was like, oh, I'll do another 6 months, and then I ended up doing a year in the end. And I don't know if I'll ever do a Western show again. So it was kind of like if I go out on Juliet, it was like such a great show to go out on, you know?
Yeah, it must be. I'm so curious. I go to see so many shows on the West End, and you watch it, and it looks so glamorous and it looks so
Hmm.
fun. It must be exhausting because it's what, 8 to 7 shows a week. Like, what's
Yeah.
that experience of being on a show consistently?
Oh, it varies show to show. And you know what? I think there's people out there that love it. There's people who I know, friends of mine, that love, doing the same show 8 times a week. They love the lifestyle, they love everything about it. For me, I think I did at first. I worked on the West End from when I was 20 for like 8 years. And I just think I did love it at first. And then I don't know, I just kind of fell out of love with it. I think doing a show every day is really hard work. It's really, really, really hard work on your body. It's really hard work on your mind.
Mm.
I always try and explain it to people who don't work in theatre. Like, imagine if you went to work and you had the exact same meeting every day, all
Yeah.
day, and you had the same conversations. People said the same jokes in the meeting rooms, and it was just like it does feel like Groundhog Day sometimes.
Yeah.
So you do have the fabulous Friday night in the West End. You're sold out. Everything's wonderful. You definitely have those moments where you're like, this is amazing, but then at the same time, it is a job, and you're like, not everybody loves going to work every day. So there's times where your body's tired, your mind is tired. Also, like working in the evening is fine and it's fun because it means you get your day. But it's like you can't then do loads of stuff in the day, depending on
Mm.
who you are in the show. Like when I was doing Juliet, for example, um, I it wasn't a it wasn't like that. It was a really difficult sing, but I was just very aware of my own voice, and I know that I can't party loads or go out. If I'm out all day, chat, 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 chat at one thing, at another thing, then when I get to work at 6 o'clock, it's like, oh, now I have to use my voice, which I've been using all day. So you kind
Mm.
of, depending on who you are, I know some people that basically, if you're playing a certain role in a West End show, it's like you can't do anything all day
Yeah.
because you have to save all your energy and your voice and your time and your mental capacity for the show. Um, so yeah, it's fun, it's great, it's fantastic, it's all of those things, but it's work. And I think sometimes people forget that it's work, because they only come see one show out of the 300 and however many shows that we do, maybe 400, I don't know. So yeah, it's a lot of things.
Yeah, I actually had never thought about the fact that it actually must make things like dating and keeping relationships really difficult because
Yeah,
your evenings are you're working. Like, what do you say? Do you want to
yeah.
come watch me on a show? Which sounds really like if I was like on a show and I was like dating someone for the first time, I'm like, yeah, let's come watch me for my show.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it's true. And that's why sometimes you end up dating other actors, which is also
Yeah.
difficult. But it's true because when I've dated people in the past and they had different jobs in different fields that had like 9 to 5s, I was like, okay, well, I won't see you during the day. You won't see me during the evening. So we'll have
Mm.
one day a week that we can see each other. And it's not easy. It's not.
Yeah, I can totally imagine. Obviously, you started on TV, and in fact, I
Yeah.
may have gone and found a clip of you on The Revenge
Oh,
Files of
God.
Alice Fury on YouTube. Um, switched to the stage. Now you're back on TV. Talk to me about the differences between those two worlds, and do you
Mhm.
feel different parts of yourself come out on stage versus on screen? And do you kind of have a general preference for one over the other? Not wanting to
Oh,
like
good
destroy any
question.
parts of your career that you might
Yeah.
want to revisit.
No, no, good question. I think everyone would probably have a different answer to this. For me, being on set is actually much more vulnerable than being on stage. On stage, even though people are right in front of you, I think you can actually hide much better than you can on screen. On screen, the camera is right there. It's
Yeah.
like every tiny emotion, every thought that crosses your eyes, people will see it. So it's much more vulnerable and exposing. And with that kind of comes fear, but also comes joy, because when you are on stage, it's kind of like, if you're sat wherever you're sat, you only sometimes can see so much.
Mm,
And also with theatre, it's like once it's done, it's done. Whereas,
yeah.
there's some scenes that I watch from the show, or when I watch other shows, I'm just like, God, how incredible that must have been to do that scene for 5 or 6 hours and tap into lots of different emotions and lots of different thought processes and lots of different journeys within yourself, and then they pick which one fits best in the moment. I just find it so fascinating compared to theatre, because I guess it depends on the show. There's some pieces of theatre where I'm like, you can't capture this on camera, and that's the
Yeah.
magic of theatre as well. And I also think with theatre, if you look at any show that I've done, you'll never have that same group of people with those same group of creatives, with that same audience, with that same tech, with that same venue. Like it's like a one in a million thing, right? So that's the magic of theatre for me. But yeah, there's huge differences. And then there's obviously like the technical differences, like when you do TV, they send a car to pick you up, which is nice. And
That's
then when
nice.
you do theatre, you have to, yeah, when you do theatre, you got to make your own way there.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah, those are the main ones for me.
I guess also theatre has that kind of two things. One is that immediate response, because you get
Hmm.
immediate reaction from the crowd, and also that opportunity to do it differently the next night, or if something doesn't go
Yeah.
quite how you hoped. With TV, and maybe I'm projecting myself here, I feel like you would film a scene and then spend days and weeks thinking about, I wonder how that came out, I'm not going to get to see it till it comes out. Do you get that sort of anxiety, or have you been able to kind of let go of that, or is that just me maybe?
No, you definitely still have it. I think you basically have to trust everyone around you. So if you're on a show that you're lucky enough to have a wonderful director and a wonderful first and a wonderful script supervisor and lots of great people that will give you honest feedback. When we were on What Feels Like for a Girl, Brian, our wonderful Block One director, would be like, that was, terrific. Or like, do you want to get one more of those? Or like, how do you feel it went? Um, be- because I feel like without that, sometimes you might just be like, how the frick am I doing? Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you can step onto some things, especially if it's a huge show. Like if you're filming something
Yeah.
with like, I don't know, like 200 people in the crew, camera A, camera B, camera C. It's like, there's no time to be worried about how it looks. You kind of just have to go for it and hope for the best. So yeah, you could definitely afterwards be like, no idea how this is gonna look.
That would give me such anxiety. I'm suddenly very, very thankful that I'm not an actor or a
Yeah.
performer. Um, Obviously, you've had an incredible 2025 already.
Yeah.
What It Feels Like for a Girl on the BBC was phenomenal, moving, hilarious, everything you want from a show, incredibly queer. I loved it. And then Too
Oh,
Much on
great.
Netflix, again, hilarious, amazing. And such different characters in many ways.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about a little bit about the experience of filming both shows? How were they different? How were they similar? Just kind of the general
Mhm.
experience on two massive shows already in 2025.
Yeah, so with What It Feels Like for a Girl, it was kind of like a really long journey for me with that show. I started auditioning for it in 2023.
Right.
And then I had meetings for like the best part of a year. I didn't get the job until like February 2024. And I was in, out, in, out. I read for different characters and I read for different moments. And they were so, it was so important to them to get it right. So it's kind of like a big jigsaw that they put together for such a long time. And then I started filming in April 2024, and we just filmed from April through September. And it was a riot, like being on set with those kind of girls. It was just it's funny because what you see on TV in What It Feels Like for a Girl as a group of friends, like the Fallen Divas, people are always like, are you like that in real life? And the answer is, we are worse in real life. Well, honestly, we obviously
That's the
had to
TV
be,
show.
yeah, like we had to be watered down for TV. We are actually you know, it's great because we're such good friends and we speak in our WhatsApp group chat every day. And it's like, it's
I
so
love that.
wonderful that we have this sisterhood. And it was just like 4 or 5 months of just laughter, holding each other, supporting each other, getting to know each other so personally. And I don't feel like that comes along very often on a show. So that was really special. And then Too Much, so I filmed Too Much the week before I started What It Feels Like for a Girl. So I kind of missed the first few
Wow.
weeks of What It Feels Like for a Girl because I was filming for Too Much. And that show was completely different because that was a 10 ep where I was a guest star in episode 8. And there was lots of different guest stars in my episodes. I wasn't like the odd one out, but I definitely stepped onto a show that was already up and running. So they were already kind of like full speed ahead. And I was really just had to just grab the bull by the horns. I remember it was a huge crew, huge cast. There was 3 camera units. There was a huge technical crew. And when I stepped on day one, I just walked into the marquee where my wedding bit was filmed, and there was like 100 supporting artists. There was 50 cast members. There was directors. There was writers. There was everybody was there, and I was just like, oh my god, this is crazy. And I was kind of like, so obviously, as you've seen, I get up and I give this like monologue and I like work the crowd. And
It's
obviously, I'd
amazing.
learned it, and I'd got it under my belt so much. And then the wonderful, incredible Lena Dunham came over to me and was like, "Alex, so your monologue," and then she turned around her iPad, and the whole thing was crossed out, and she'd rewritten it. And I
Oh
was
my
basically
gosh.
like, I kind of had like a moment where I was like, I have no choice. I'm on a show with people like Richard E. Grant, Meg Stalter,
Mm,
Will Sharp. You know, I was like, I can't be like, oh, okay, I need a minute to go away,
yeah.
learn this, and then come. I was just like, I read it. I was like, great, got it. Because I had no choice. I had to just like go for it. Um, and then we basically just started filming it, and uh, we just kind of did it. And then I was like, I remember I wasn't nervous. Nervous isn't the right word. I was excited, but I was just like finding all of those things in the moment, and it was just like so electric. Being on that set, just completely different from What It Feels Like for a Girl, because like I said, I stepped onto this show kind of like just a tiny moving piece. Um, so yeah, worlds apart, but both just incredible.
Yeah, they're amazing. And I think what's so interesting is obviously with What It Feels Like for a Girl, it was a very strong ensemble cast and you were all phenomenal in it. But your scene or the main scene on Too Much is all eyes on you. You are
Yeah,
the center of attention. And so that must feel like such pressure on your shoulders to
yeah.
be, I'm guessing for at least a day, the only person being filmed.
Yeah, it did, and you're absolutely right. It was a whole day. We basically that's the funny thing about TV. You know, something that's like one scene that will be in an episode for like 3 minutes. We
Yeah.
filmed it from like 8 a.m. till 8 p.m. Obviously, we did it in the wide, we did it in the close up, we did it in the follow, and obviously my scene was like a performance, so I had to give full
Yeah.
energy every time in heels, in the dress. I was just like exhausted, but the finished product looks great, and you know,
It's amazing.
but that was one of those moments where I was like, I have no idea what this is going to look like. Absolutely no idea, but
Okay.
it all came together.
Yeah, well, we all loved it. It looked
Oh,
amazing.
good.
I'm super curious about kind of obviously one of the differences that I would pick up as an outsider on those two shows is it felt like What It Feels Like for a Girl was predominantly queer. Like a lot of the performers were, a lot of the crew, from what I understand, were. How does that differ? And then I guess how do you go around choosing projects and what draws you to them?
Good question. I guess, like I said before, I try and align myself with projects and shows that I am naturally aligned to anyway.
Mm,
But I think it's a few things, you know, having a fantastic agent who is just my lifeline, who knows exactly what I want to do and what I don't want to do. So she looks out for things like What It Feels Like for a Girl. So when that came in, it was kind of like a no-brainer that I had to audition for it. Um, and then just, you know, timing, luck. A lot of being an actor is just luck. And you know, hoping that the industry is moving in the right direction. You know, it's not every day that a show like What It Feels Like for a Girl comes
Yeah.
along. Um, you know, it shouldn't be so groundbreaking to have a show like ours in 2025. But unfortunately it is. So yeah, I think the number one thing that I've had to learn is patience and resilience and just knowing. I always say this to everybody: just know what you do well and do that really well. Because often, you
Yeah.
know, when I was at drama school and I was younger and stuff, you know, they try and mold you into something. And I spent so many years trying to be this like West End leading man, and I was just like so uncomfortable because I'm just like, this isn't me. At all. They'd always tell me, you look too young, you look too short, you look too skinny. And I was like, yeah, because I'm not a 6'5" like white guy who you
Yeah.
have in your head the idea to play all these leading roles. It's just not who I am. So once I scrapped all that crap and basically was just like doing my thing, it's like I always say, yeah, just know who you are and do that well, because there's so much room for you as you are, you know?
Yeah. Do you feel like you just mentioned something there which I'm interested in, which is it feels like, again, as a viewer, as an outsider, it feels like we are seeing a shift in representation over the last few years. You know, groundbreaking shows that, to your point, shouldn't be groundbreaking, but are, unfortunately, but phenomenal nonetheless. And we're seeing more representation of the entire LGBTQ plus community, right? I think up until recently, you would get, you know, a lot of gay characters, you get a lot of lesbian characters, and often they would be token. And now we're getting the entire community represented, which is amazing. Are you also feeling that shift in queer representation and storytelling today?
A little bit. I think definitely more so in America it's happening and in Hollywood and all that stuff, because there's a bigger market for it and there's more people behind the scenes who are also from our community, unlike in the UK always.
Mm,
And I think also it's all about percent, right? So it's kind of like I know it seems that like there's loads of queer characters and queer shows, but it's like, unfortunately, compared to how much there still is of like your general like crime thriller or like ITV
yeah,
or whoever will have such a huge catalog of your generic cis spy thriller, plain drama, whatever, to like 10% of like putting out
yeah.
queer work, if not less. So I guess it's like it is happening, which is good, but just not enough as of right now, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense. And one of the other things you've spoken about, which hopefully we can get into a little bit, which is you've spoken about your neurodiversity and how that overlaps with your experience as a queer person. How has being neurodivergent shaped your relationship with performance, with yourself, with your relationships?
Oh, good question. I think, you know, having ADHD is such a complex and tricky thing. And I think, especially being unmedicated, because I'm just like, there's so much about my brain, which is so creative, but there's so much
Mm,
about my neurodiversity that it kind of restricts that in a way, because it's like I have so many ideas and so many avenues I want to explore and so many creative outlets. Like, I'm like, oh, I'm good at music. Oh, I like to act. Oh, I want to write a book. Oh, I want to paint. Oh, I want to start a podcast. So because I have all these things I want to do, I'll do none of them, because that's how my
okay.
brain works. Because it's like the more things that I'm overfaced with, the more difficult it is, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes my ADHD plays to my downfall, because I'm just like, I have so many things I want to do. I think I'm good at so many things, but I'm so overwhelmed. I'll do none of them. And then that's in work, and then I guess in dating, it's kind of been I don't know, less prevalent, because a lot of my ADHDisms are just who I am as a person, and
Mm,
I'm quite like a eccentric person. I'm quite like weird and funny, and it's just like a lot of those things are what my husband loved the most about me. He's just
nice.
like, you know, all of that, like he's like, I make him laugh like nobody else. Every day is different. You never know what you're gonna get with me. And I feel like that all comes from being well, mostly comes from being neurodiverse. I can't sit still. I have a million ideas. But then also I get ADHD burnout. I just crash, and I'm just like, don't talk to me. Don't look at me. So swings and roundabouts.
So you need him to understand both elements of it, I guess. The
Yeah.
understand the excitement, the fun, but then also know. I guess in those moments you want him to just kind of step away and leave you
Yeah,
be,
which
or
he
do you
does.
want to
I mean,
become
5 years
okay?
on, he's very patient. He's
He's
very
learned.
understanding. He's the best.
I love that. Right. So we started this conversation talking about young Alex, and I want to revisit them. If you could offer young Alex one piece of advice, what would it be? And would it be different if I said, what advice would you offer to a young queer person today in 2025?
Oh, very good question. You know what? My advice to my younger self would probably be like, hang in there because your current situation isn't your forever situation. But ironically, growing up, that's the mentality I had anyway. I used to lay in my room in like my small town, with like no other queer people, no other people of color, and just be like, I know this isn't forever. And I
Yeah.
think oftentimes young people don't realize that, when you're like 10, 11, 12, that whatever, you think you think that this has never happened to anyone else before. You
Yeah.
think your experiences are so unique. And B, you think, oh my God, this is life. This is my life forever. So my advice to myself would be that, but my advice to other young people would be the same. Like, your life isn't what it is right now unless you want it to be. And of course, a lot of that comes from a privileged point of view because, not everyone has access um, to money or to opportunities or education, but neither did I. We grew up in a like small council house, me and my sisters, like five of us under one roof in like a 2-3 bed house, and like we didn't have like a plethora of opportunity, or if I hadn't have got a scholarship to drama school, I wouldn't have gone. I wouldn't have been able to go. I wouldn't have been able to pay for anything. So it's like it's not always what your current situation holds, but it's about how much you want it to change. And I don't believe in, oh, work hard, because that's fucking bullshit that we were told by the higher powers, that if you work hard you can achieve anything. And
Yeah.
unfortunately that's not the case, because there's lots of biases that are held against us. I do think you should work hard, but I don't think that's the easy answer. But yeah, I think my advice would just be, if you're going through something that you don't want to have forever, then do the best you can to make sure it isn't your forever.
Yeah. It's become kind of cliche, but I do genuinely believe in the vast majority of cases, it does get better. And to your
Yeah.
point, it is that kind of determination, that perseverance to either take yourself out of a situation if it's not the right situation, or lean into a situation if it is the right situation and explore that
Yeah.
kind of fully.
Yeah, being brave. I think there's been so many times in my life where I've had no money, no clue, no idea, no job, no no home. I remember like sleeping on my sister's couch, and I was just like, you know what, I'm gonna like move to Berlin. And I moved to Berlin and I just lived there. I didn't know anybody, I didn't know a single person, didn't know the language, but I built a whole community for myself. I ended up stumbling across opportunities, and it's just like I'm just such a huge believer in just like throwing yourself into situations, taking things by the balls, and just being like, I don't know how this is going to go, I don't know what the outcome will be, but I'm going to go for it anyway, and no love lost, so yeah, be brave, be brave.
I love that. There is no better way to end the podcast than that. Alex, thank you so much for being on Queer Talk with me today. And just thank you so much for all your incredible work. And I'm just so excited to continue seeing you grace our screens with incredible and authentic characters. So thank you so much for being on the podcast with me today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Queer Talk.